And whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this special video edition with a very, very important topic on our galactic history and the understanding of timelines. This is a special video request by someone who recently sent me an email and asked me about certain things. The thing is, first thing I wish to expose here before I start talking about today's topic is that I do a lot of videos. I shared a lot of videos in the past, and sometimes people ask me to talk about things that I've already talked about, and I don't do that because there's an extreme time demand on the undertakings that, I'm currently involved in my own mission. So, as you know, I'm writing a book on dimensional volunteer souls, and I'm currently very much going into the direction of offering these life force retreats for people who want to visit. And this takes a lot of my time. And there's an extreme demand from people coming, with all these different requests. So my recommendation that came through Spirit today is that if you do have a specific request that you can find clarity on and you wish for me to additionally address something, besides what I'm already myself guided to share through Spirit in my own Ascension updates and many series from Galactic updates, Wisdom of the Stars series, our New Life series, so many different playlists I have, the Tantrika playlist, different free video courses I already offer. There's so many of those. And for those of you who wish to support my work by going deeper with enhanced teachings and sacred activations with more advanced knowledge by getting my courses, by purchasing my courses, and therefore you support my work so that I can be sustained in the physical as well. If you have additional requests through what you want me to share for free here in my Ascension updates and my videos for this mastery that I can share with all of you for free, I from now on have this simple request that you have to kind of like respect my time as well and the effort that I put in, the hours of this work in transmission, that it's a constant transmission. It's not just the hours when I sit behind this, record the video, then I do the video edit, but it's also the constant transmissions that I'm receiving. I have to be in this constant state of receiving what I'm receiving. So there's a constant dedication, and it's a very engaged process. And sometimes I feel like my head will explode if it's too much pressure on the demands that people have. So my recommendation is, if you have a very specific request, if you wish for me to address a specific topic, please respect the time demands on and the offerings that I already share so much for free, because that's my main platform. Understand that I also have this, my own physicality to sustain and support. So if you do have a specific request, please consider donating, and it's kind of like you're sponsoring that video topic. There's a donation page on my Serapina Light webpage, as well as here a button on the YouTube channel. There's a donation button, as well as you can become a Patreon supporter of mine. But if you have a specific topic, you can write me an email and then follow up with your donation. It's unconditional, and yet it's meant to be supported in that way, because that does cherish the input that I put in all these materials. Okay, so today is the last video on this topic that I will do with unconditional sharing, because I feel it's a really important topic. But from now on, with these kind of additional requests, please consider the format I advised you to take on, with writing me an email request and then, kind of like supporting the way and the energy that I put into these things and the way I create them. Okay. So today's topic is deeply important. The first thing I wish to share is, before I go deep into the nature of our galactic history and a deep understanding of such, and the guidance I received after that email, is that if you've been following lately, and if you've been going through my latest Ascension update for the month of April, I've been talking about the volcanic eruption, but I've talked about it as in terms of analogy, using it as a metaphor, as an example for what's currently taking place. But yet sometimes I channel these things that are transmissions of spirit, and I don't even know what's about, and later I get information about what it's also about. So someone recently sent me a video about a new incoming wave of energy here on this planet. That's not always, you know, these energy waves that people notice, and they have these different computer equipments, and they follow up with these rays of energy, like solar outbursts, cosmic rays, gamma rays, things like that. And they've been talking about the fact that this energy stream isn't really understood and where it's coming from, and they can't always locate it. And it was explained as a very big bang boom energy, and that's exactly the words I've been using. And I used a volcano, kind of like a metaphor, because I got this volcano archetype through the cards as well, and I was shown this as an explosion. And then there was talking about Etna volcano, you know, in Italy, in Sicily. And it was really amazing, because sometimes we channel these things. You know, I do that always randomly, sometimes through jokes. A lot of jokes and things I put out are also channeled messages, because we're so highly and hypersensitive attuned beings in what we share. But like I said, it takes a lot of time and energy. So there's so much coming through, and I've shared with you that there's some beautiful channels that have referenced this time as the coming of the new earth, new wave energy, which would be spring this year. Larkma, the group of Pleiadian channelings, have been sharing about this, and I love these two guys. They have very pure material, as well as there's a channeling from Cassandra, this group of Pleiadian beings as well, who talk about changes, and the 2017 as being a very important year. I shared the link down below because I think it's a very good video. I don't usually listen to channel material very much, but I recognize, you know, it's like kind of like separating the wheat from the chaff. So it's kind of like a very good emphasis. I will share some of the materials today that I think it's very important for you to consider, because it relates to my topic today. One is the 3 waves of volunteer souls, volunteers, and the new earth. This is from my favorite author, which is Dolores Cannon. She's an amazing lady. She provided us with so much understanding, like this foundational pioneering work in the regards of hybrid souls and volunteer souls who are now serving the planet and the planetary ascension, not just the ascension of humanity, which is, you know, it's kind of like on a bigger scope of what's unfolding. The second thing that I really, really love is the Prism of Lyra, which is the incorporated and integrated galactic history through many different archetypal embodiments of our wholeness, right? Because we have different stellar connections and attunements. So there's very good and very simple explanation. It's not a long book. It's very short to read. You know, I myself am not a fond reader. I just receive directly from spirit, but when certain things are good, I like to kind of like see and tune into it, how my own resonance and guidance comes and follows up with that. And the third one is Soul Integration from Salvador Kelly. This one I already recommended many times. It has some very good concepts here as well. But as always, you have to tune in with your own resonance and integration of soul. So, okay, let's move on to today's topic. The question that I received was relating to sorts of streams of information about why are things on this planet so chaotic? Because there seems to be these theories that talk about the fragmentation of souls and the involvement of souls in this net of not being sovereign and choosing their own life embodiments and being a part of the scheme of certain beings. Some of them call them archons, some of them call them the false light beings. You know, like some of them call them the high councils that really are not the high councils that would be the true high councils of knowledge and wisdom. So it's kind of like that there's this matrix system that keeps souls reincarnating all over and over again while not having the sovereignty to become fully free and ascended. And it deals with the fact that there's many false principles that, you know, kind of like we follow up in this timeline and we're not fully aware of, and that the souls think they're free but are not really free because they belong to this reincarnating, recycling net. And as well as there was a question, why would the high councils even allow that? And why would we be so fallen in this frequency, and that this free will experiment as a part of the co-created gods that have fallen themselves? Okay, so lovely topic, because, you know, I've talked about this before and you can see, and not many people watched that video, which is a shame, I think, because this is one of the most important videos in my sharings, and it's called The Illuminated Truth. And it has a light activation for the sacred retreats when you can tune into the light of purity and become engaged in a more unified field of true unified knowledge, which is the truth of illumination. Okay, please consider watching that video, because it's of high importance and it relates exactly to this. So I won't be repeating again what I've shared there about what illumined truth is, how you can tune into it, and what's the difference between illumined, unified truth and the fragmented portions of that truth. So, okay. After I received that question, there was a few streams of information coming through. And at first I didn't want to do the video because I said, I talked about this so many times before. Why would I do it again? You know, and I have so many projects coming up. But then I had this wave of energy, and it's almost like an instant knowing that I receive. And it's almost like the higher self speaks through you. And I call this the voice of spirit. And it was very strong and very persistent, and it gave me like a straight answer, because some of the things I myself was asking about, and I felt like, okay, perhaps I can deepen this topic one day, and I wasn't quite sure about it. And I never share things unless they're directly, specifically clear, because that's the difference. When we share from purity, we share when there's an absolute knowing of the distinction of what is and what is not. In the difference to people who have partial awakenings, they put out a lot of information, but that information is not yet applied through the integration of soul. That's the first thing. And that there's a difference between the awakening of our human self to our soul, and then when you're awakened to the soul, there's also different layers of awareness of that soul, where you are in your soul awareness. So when your soul grows, evolves, and expands, right? So there's many different distinctions to what we're going to talk about. So you say, okay, you are awake to your soul awareness, right? You're channeling your soul awareness. You're not just in your human limited ego perception, and that there's still variations of that. I'm going to explain more why. The first thing that I have to say is that the first challenger here is that there's a lot of people seeking understanding without the application of working on their personal mastery first. Why? Because this will always give you the propulsion and tendency to seek that information outside of you, which will cause you to be led into the sources of confusion. And it will create just more distortion, confusion. And people always write to me that these channels and sources don't feel so good to them, and they want to explore more, but they're uncertain and they don't know. So they ask me for help and assistance, and here I am, as always. So during my own awakening, I've been asking myself a lot of these questions. Now, not so much, because it's like the veil has been pierced through. And it's kind of like when you exist in your illuminated state on earth as well, in your earthly vessel, you peek through that veil. So I knew that the guidance was meant to be shared, because I went outside today to do my yoga practice. It was very cold and I didn't get to do much of it, but I knew why I came outside anyway, because there was these two huge clouds, and you can see the image on my Instagram profile. There's one cloud that was actually divided into two halves, and the sun was piercing and peeking right through the middle, you know, of those two clouds, which really shows you that the message was the unified truth pierces through. It's the illumination that pierces through the seeming polarity, right? So the polarity is a natural principle of creation. That's how everything can come into matter. But there's a difference between a unified polarization, by everything coming into crystallization of matter, and a dualistic distortion of that polarity, which will cause you either to exist in the extreme amounts of light or the extreme amounts of darkness, and many different layers and shades, in between, right? So the illuminated truth is that in between, right? So the first challenger I was exposed by spirit is that a lot of people now are waking up, but they're still confused, is because they're seeking too much understanding outside of themselves. So they get to this information that's still partial. It's not yet unified truth. And I share this in my Illuminated Truth video. Please watch that, okay? So that I don't repeat things. I don't like to repeat myself. That's kind of like the quality that I really don't like. So what's here behind this is, when you seek understanding before applying yourselves by working on your mastery and the inner unification of your vision with the vision of unity, you will get these distortions, because they will reflect your own level of the lack of integration of your soul. That's why I always talk about the importance of your embodiment, soul, and soulment in your body, right? Because your consciousness can only precipitate through this physical form, and if that's not evolved and expanded, then you can't do that. You can't achieve it. You're searching for understanding, but it's always going to be just information you're going to feed yourself to, and you won't have the integration to be able to incorporate that through the vision of unity. And that's why my main domain and my main focus is teaching people mastery, how to refine their soul levels and soul integration mastery and master their life force so that they can become pure conduits and channels, so they don't have to go through my videos and ask me for my opinions and what I believe and what I see. So they unify their own inner visions and they work on their unification for their own physical ascension, okay? That's why I do this, and that's my main focus in this lifetime. My focus is not so much to talk about these distortions, to, you know, these events, many different agendas. I do not. So I will explain, however, from the unified perspective, how Spirit shows me what these things that are now happening and these theories that people have and present to others are all about. So that was the first issue I exposed, the lack of clarity and seeking understanding before working in your own mastery. The second thing is that there's a misconception between the timelines. Imagine timelines are like lines of different, it's like within the web, the Gossamer web of all life in creation, which you exist within by, you know, by traversing through a certain wave of consciousness as a sovereign soul. And then there's different timelines, and all are interrelated and all like enmeshed in this bowl of everything and of all life in existence and the song in creation. What I was asked about, because I shared a video about creation story and I read from Dolores' book called The Legend of the Star Crash. Very cute book, by the way. And the person asked me, well, what about this creation story and this, right? Which I kind of showed you through the question that was asked. That's not really, the second confusion is the real creation story and the creation distortions, which were different timelines that were chosen. So that's the first thing we need to address here, because people still confuse that, okay? It's not the same thing. The real creation story talks about how Source creates, how everything in existence is created. And just yesterday when I was reading from this book from Dolores, The Legend of the Star Crash, there's this example of one of the timelines, how these beings from outer space, so they were from different constellation, different star system, different star, and how they wanted to explore the colonization of other worlds and planets, but they had this governmental falling out. So there was only one fraction that decided to leave, the rest stay there, so they didn't want to have unrest, civil war. So they said, okay, we're gonna go, and we explored, and one of the ships crashed and it landed here on Earth, but that was a trajectory that was chosen on a predetermined, predestined level. See? So from the vision of, wow, what happened? It was a crash. This happened, right? And in the bigger truth, was meant to happen because they actually influenced the advancement of the human race at that particular time. And that was around 15,000 to 10,000 years ago. It was predicted that way after the withdrawal of the first, last ice age. So that was one of the trajectories, right? So the real creation story deals with all life, how it's structured. And I talked to you about creation principles. That's the real creation story. Anything else that you hear as, okay, this happened, Luciferian agenda, this agenda, that is not a creation story, okay? These are fractions and timelines that particular beings have chosen to play within creation as they've set these experiments into motion of how they will play this out and how they will grow in their own way, right? So in the bigger level of things, everything is chosen for the advancement. On a tinier level, when you lose that consciousness of the sovereign self, of the complete luminescent being self that knows everything, that is interconnected with everything, and like it was shared in the book, the being that was, while he was in the incarnation and giving Dolores the data, he spoke from very different type of awareness that after he left the embodiment, he came back to spirit, he had a full vision, and he was like, hello. She was like, what? I could see you. And she got a little afraid, right? But the spirit could see, and we do not comprehend how the spirit of the embodiment that was so long ago can now, that exited the body at that time and entered the spirit form. How could they see Dolores in this time frame now, in this now time moment, right? We don't understand these things from a mental capacity, brain capacity level. Where am I going with this? You're going to see very fast. Is because these brain distortions and the human egoic distortions create these false stories that are not the real stories, and it's not the true creation origin. So creation story is one little fraction. The creation truth, on the other hand, is the unified truth of what governs all life in creation, and people mistaken that. So when you only see a fraction, right, you will see a very distorted reality. The example I gave you was the star crash, right? It's like, oh, this was so bad. We wanted to go there, but we landed on Earth. And from that perspective, it was pretty terrible because Earth's sun was too radiant for them. They had radioactivity problems, and they had very hard time adjusting. But it actually led them to put this into motion of the existence of interbreeding with the human and creating a new genetic structure for the human race that was to follow. And there's many stories like that. So what is the truth? Was it really a crash? Was it a mistake? Or was it a predestined event? So recently when we talked about this with my mother, I showed her this tiny little picture, a drawing. How Spirit shows me is when, you know, when we say a soul goes to a council and they're choosing a particular lifetime, and they're given different options. You can go A, B, C, right? Choose one, and they choose one, and they go into that embodiment, although they have a variety of choices. The thing is, even the existence of free will is governed by higher laws, but most of the souls can't see them yet. And that's why distortions with the human filtering of the mind are created. And only a tiny little portion of truth falls out. And the mistake is in identifying that little tiny portion, the fragment, with the whole truth. And that's where all illusion and all misconceptions and even fear-mongering comes from, when the people don't have the understanding that's much vaster, unified truth understanding. So the truth in that nature is you get different choices. But even, you know, in the master, in the council, they show you, they're a part of you, they're one with you, right? Because all life is in unity. And even in that book, The Legend of the Star Crash, the being, once they elevated into the spirit form, they said, wow, there's no need for God concept because everything is of God. Everything is divine and it all flows together in unity. And when you get that, I mean, really get that, not mentally, but when you are in that consciousness space, everything is perceived as such. God, the divine, is in every aspect. And you no longer see things as mistakes and falling outs. And what we say, the fallen, is just a temporary timeline that's chosen for a particular advancement or what souls wish to achieve in that particular timeline, but it's still very limited to the scope of the reality that's much bigger and grander. So if you look at those options, right, that exist and they're given to you as different variables, they coexist within a bigger, vaster field within which is already known. So even though you have a feeling, I'm choosing, right, this is this choice, but it's also predetermined and held together by higher laws. These laws are not laws that go against your will. These are not the laws that you would perceive as hierarchical laws, which you're governed by these beings and you have no free will. No, these are the laws that super extend to the degree which is the beingness, like that's that unified consciousness, that unity that the being, you know, said, wow, it's all life, everything works together, it's all one, it's beautiful. But it's one thing to think about this oneness, and it's the other thing to live and, you know, see that as a reality and exist in that consciousness. So even if there's a feeling of choosing different things and variables, those variables still exist within a much bigger, vaster field, right? That's one thing. So we've come to this point. That's what I wanted to give you now, that there's this predetermination, but it's not a predetermination in which your soul would be forced to do something. The third thing is this belief, right, that these things are happening and the souls are trapped in this false net and all of that. The first guidance that came through was that that's actually the past. It was like, that's the memory of past. Those were exact words of Spirit. So all of these timelines were played out. It's all described in the Prism of Lyra. You have different star races and the journeys of soul integration they had to go through, and the understanding that these are all aspects of us. And when we're here on Earth, we perceive, right? We're now on Earth. We're embodied here. We're grounded here. So we have a reality that's limited just to Earth. But in truth, it's not just limited to Earth. If you read that book, you will see that what we're integrating now on Earth was just different timelines coming together. It's the multiples of all of these stellar constellations that had each their own stories. So when we form the stories in the skies, right, and we describe them with certain variables as well, and we give them storylines, and we say these are archetypes. They're actually the stories and myths that revolve around a certain exploration of that consciousness that we played out, or aspects of us, let's call it like that, played out or are playing out still, because there's this constant expansion journey that's multidimensional. They're still playing out, and there are particular stellar embodiment, attainment, you know, whatever. I have this beautiful course called the Multidimensional Ascension, which is kind of like super advanced, but for those of you who already take that course, because it gives you the perspective of Ascension in a much broader way than you perhaps thought it was possible. So in the Prism of Lyra, there's this description, and one particular standing out that was very challenging was of the Orion constellation. And in the Orion, there was this experiment of falling so low that the souls felt they had no more free will, that they were really trying to prevent the leakage of the souls and moving into other stellar systems and other experiences by keeping them there and harnessing their energy, right, for these experiments. And there was such governmental control, and of course there was also unrest happening, and things like the rebellion, right? And the thing is, what it was shown is that now on Earth, when we're ascending, and with the ascension of the planet and with the ascension of those humans who are waking up now, there's memory banks opening up that the souls are now, it's like slowly opening up different levels of these consciousness that deal with these stellar stories and archetypes. What's happening is that they might feel so real as if you're living it in this now moment. One more thing I need to expose here is a lot of people talk about the now. They say, I'm sitting here now on this couch, right? I'm recording this video. I'm in the now. But am I really? You see, we say I'm in the now and I'm sitting here, but my consciousness might not be in the now. The now is a synthesis of many variables. And when you're more advanced in your understanding, you will see the now is a far greater complex topic and understanding that just, okay, I'm focused on my presence right now, I'm breathing, I'm in the now. When you're truly in the now, all the timelines are merged together. That's the real now. And I know the great masters have been talking about this, they've been sharing about this, perhaps not in those words, their language was more simple so that people at that time could understand it. But why we're providing you with a more advanced language now is because most humans are ready now, who are tuning into this information, and they're remembering in their own cellular memory and light DNA memory of the soul remembrance. So there's a difference of by saying I'm in the now, and many people say just because I'm sitting here in this moment I'm in the now, or I'm meditating, perhaps you're not in the now, because the true now is when you're a fully wholesome being, when all the timelines have merged within you. There's no more non-integrated aspects of you, and there's a lot of this how to integrate your soul in the soul integration book, which I highly recommend to those of you who feel there's still fragmentation within you and you don't have the full understanding. So you can pursue that path, and in a way we're all pursuing it in our own way. So with this in mind, is the real now is the unified self. I can sit on the couch, I can say I'm in the now, but my mind is still so much reliving this past stories. So when I was shown this, that these theories that people present, and a lot of them are very fear-mongering, and they present people this idea that that's all that's happening. This is what it is, and we're trapped, and that's it, right? And people get scared. The thing is, it's a very small portion of reality that's happening, and a lot of it deals with the past and the remembrance of the past. It's been lived through. It's already happened. The thing is that when you become a conscious self-master, when you become a being that's fully illumined and constantly rebirthed from within, these things you will recognize as stories. And people, show me, yo, watch this video, Polona, this is the real creation story. I'm like, that's not a creation story. It's just one of the timelines and one of the experiments, but the real creation story is the essence of how life was formed. What's behind the Big Bang, right? What's behind what made life? That's the real creation story. So when you see only a tiny fraction of that and you take it for the whole truth, you will be misled. You won't see the truth in that matter. So what I was also shown is after that question and me receiving this guidance, and that a lot of people are reliving those memories, right? They're like, the memory banks are opening. And the other thing I wish to share is I was shown, the Spirit said, they will exist until they need it. Why? Because they need to integrate it. If any of those information you receive still cause like a fear, anxiety, something within you, that means you are connected with that energy. Why it's come to you anyway. I remember a few years back when I entered and I encountered this consciousness. I was a part of it too, but it was very shortly. I simply integrated it, left my consciousness for good. It was no longer there. So now it's coming back with the people asking me these questions because I'm meant to serve in that regard through my own example of integration and what the true unified truth really is. But it's like, it will exist there within those people until their memory banks come and return back to the wholeness and the prime DNA and the prime light. Before many of these fractions came to be, right? Again, read The Prism of Lyra, such a good book. It's like one of my favorite ones, perhaps. So what I was shown afterwards, I went to also get this confirmation through some of the oracles, and I pulled out this beautiful card from, I think, the energy cards of the energy oracle, and it's called the Healer of the Ages. And then this white clothed beautiful man, figure of light, looks like Joshua, looks like Jesus. And the guidance that was very instant again was people who were struggling with these topics need to turn to those who are truly of the unified light, you know, not just in human form, because remember, human form, human brain has the capacity to distort. What I'm showing is there's very few beings walking alongside what I share that really do bring forth as they're coming from the councils of unified truth. They're here to help unify these fragments on the planet and within people who have been so much relating to these partial timelines that they can't synthesize, they can't become illumined, and they can't walk the path that great masters have walked through. And remember, if you've read any guidance from any master, they've all shared the same thing. They had to go through this, what they call demonic evil forces, but they were not, like, spirits are not evil. And if you've read any of the soul hypnotic regressions like Dolores or Newton, which talk about these spirit planes and the truth, and they all say it's all benevolent. It's when you come into these incarnated forms and you participate in this timelines, that's where the distortion happens because of the egoic implants. So the implants that many people talk about that are supposed to be negative, even the implants are there. It's almost like I don't call them implants because it sounds very technical and it sounds very like harmful, like you have something in, just get it out, right? I say they're imprints. There's a difference between conscious imprints and unconscious imprints. Again, nothing is superimposed upon you. You are not a victim of anything. It's just a matter of how tuned into you are into the truth of whether you have what you have imprinted upon. When you're conscious of it, you're like, yes, I've done this for the betterment. I've done this to advance in this regard, to transcend this, to integrate this. While the unconscious is you've imprinted it, but you've forgotten about it. So you blame something and you seek for external you know, something like a figure or deity or a creation god that's gone evil or bad, you know. The thing is that when we're souls, right, the souls have created all these experiments on higher levels because they wanted to play them out in form. When there's a misconception about it, on the human level, many times people will be frightened. They say, no, we haven't done this. That wasn't a part of the agreement. I'm superimposed and I'm being cheated by these beings and it's all fake and it's all false. And yes, there's things like that, and I call them astral entities, and there's fragmented aspects of, but they're all aspects of us. So when we say a fragmented entity, that's an aspect of us that we have pushed aside until it's become so fragmented that it's never fully claimed back into sovereign wholeness. And we might say haunting ghosts, but even if you read again this hypnotic regressions, because souls there do not, they bypass the ego, they move into the soul understanding and soul awareness. So it's pure, it's unbiased, it's unfiltered. In the human version, so many people filter these things to the degree that they become like, they sell you something and that's all there it is. And it scares you because you think, wow, is that the nature of the reality? Perhaps. Whose reality? Ask yourself, is it yours? Because there's always conscious, free, sovereign choice in this reality. So our galactic history is so vast. There's so much happening, and a lot of it is past timelines. But until that is integrated, and that's, you're not fully in the illumined now. Like I've explained, the real nature of now, not this just like, you know, we say, oh, I'm in the now, like it's just a catchphrase. That's not the same thing. It's like namaste, right? You can say namaste and be all, oh, but then you walk away and you turn to someone's back and you're gossiping, you know, and that's not true namaste. You're not embodying it. It's kind of like the same with these things that I'm trying to portray here. It's their abuse to the degree of not being presented to people through the light, because a lot of people have been fragmented as well. So when they're receiving this information, it's like soul memory to these past timelines. It's memories coming back, but they haven't fully integrated it yet. So they share it with other people before they have become truly awakened. And that's a lot of danger lies in that. When you share materials and knowledge that's still fragmented and it's still filtered before you've completed your inner integration work. And there's a lot of that outside. And I call it the new age because it's immature. You know, a lot of the not immature, but it's almost like premature knowledge. I love the sharing that was in the Kriya books that says it's almost like when if you too advanced to do this work of light and your chakras are not open yet and are not activated, what happens is you will have perhaps a memory or a recalling of a certain past lifetime or something, and you're not yet having the greater understanding of it, so you will kind of distort it. That's the same thing. It's all described there. And that's why this tending to the work of our consciousness needs to be a gradual process of gradual illumination of the self, rather than quick jumping to conclusion because there's lack of knowledge. So I see a lot of people who share from this fragmented aspect. I'm not guided to watch that information. And people sometimes impose upon me to get my opinion. I'm not going to do that because I'm my own sovereign master and I choose. And I choose through the vision of unity. I love to watch things that support and come from unified space of unity consciousness to serve the whole. I don't, on the other hand, like to engage with things that are still partial and fragmented. So what I was shown, that these memories are coming back and souls are in a way reliving those timelines. It's almost like there's this catchphrase called Atlantis Rising. And a lot of these books that are great books from Patricia Corey, the Starseed Awakening, the Syrian Trilogy, I think that's something else, the Oversoul something, I don't know, I forgot the titles, but there's the Starseed Syrian Trilogy that also presents this from a little higher perspective. It's not like fully unified, it's still a Syrian perspective and how they experience that. But remember, there's even bigger, wider perspectives. So I think Prism of Light represents with different factions of that and multitudes of creation experiments and experiences, which is not the same, again, as the creation truth. So creation truth propels our life in creation, not just this physical universe, but many different multiverses that it's a conjoint effort. It's a synthesized union of all that is of the divine. Everything is divine. And these partial figments, many times people add their own imagination to it, and because they still have their own fears. And imagine like you receive an image and it's of something and it's a soul memory, right? Even when you go to sleep and you dream, you don't always dream within this now timeline. Sometimes you have memories. You have memories. It's like, you know, when we say, wow, I look at the star's light. But that light, considering how light travels with its speed, you're looking at as if the past, right? So where we are now located in this region of the universe, in the Milky Way belt, in a very kind of like outer region of this space, we are having our own, it's like, you know, partial vision to what is the whole. And that truth, that unified aspect, is that the galactic core in that center. That's the unified version of all the different stories, right? All the different timelines. And the true ascension deals with your fusion, if I can use that word, the fusion and the merging of the timelines, where the timelines are gathering and they're creating a unified timeline. I've talked about this before, creating a unified timeline. So if you ask me questions, please consider looking through my older videos, because I think there isn't a single topic that really is important that I haven't addressed already. I was shown this very specifically, that there's this first and foremost confusion that people see a certain fragment of experience and they relate it to the whole truth, right? In a way that will always leave you still partially fulfilled, and you will keep striving for more. How you will know that you're in this unified truth? Because you'll feel peace. And none of these things that come, they will no longer have an energy charge within you. I had to go through a lot of these. I was merging a lot of timelines, and I didn't know what that was at that time, because my awakening happened fast, very sudden, and very intense, because I had a lot of intense knowledge and advanced knowledge coming through so fast that I didn't know these things. Later, I came across these terms like timelines and such, and I'm like, I didn't know I was doing it. But with each book I was reading, with all these things that came from a different type of consciousness, I was fusing my awareness with that type of the story, right? Certain myths and analogies that dealt with that type of consciousness. But the overall consciousness of our core creation self is that which comes from the galactic core and the pulse of all life. And my work is dedicated to that from now on. As you can see, I talk about the mastery of life force, how you can synthesize yourself so that you, when you tune into this information And when you find yourself, wow, you have an energetic, you have a core reaction in response to these things that come out and people share, because they do exist for a reason. Like I said, it's memory coming back, like Atlantis rising, right? A lot of people are having these memories of the fall, of the fallen frequency, but it's not like it's a fated outcome and we're trapped and there's other souls governing our life and we have no will. We're just these like slaves, right? No, the awakened soul, the whole story was created because we wanted to see how far we can go in the forgetfulness of the self and still wake up and still remember that what actually created all is from divine love. The souls who have returned to this state are now assisting others. And I've shared with you before about why I talk so much of volunteer souls, servants of all life in creation, because we have already unified. And what's left to do is, the hierarchy of the divine self is structures of different beings who are not more and less important. But the nature of divine hierarchy is that the bigger, the wider helps the lower, which is that which is still climbing up the ladder of spirit. And I think Patricia Corey was one of the pioneers who presented this in her Syrian trilogy, in her work, which I read many years ago. I think it was in 2011. It sounds like many years ago, but for you who have done this timeline shifts and this work, you don't feel any more energetic charge towards contents like that. And people who do, it means you somehow came across that content for a reason. Don't just dismiss it, and don't take it on the other hand as the ultimate truth. Find the space where you can, in your own creative space, which means where you feel safe, supported, nurtured, and loved. My biggest recommendation out there in nature, when I go out in nature, all of that, this mental distorted energy, which you can feel when you just plug into the World Wide Web. And for those of us who are hypersensitive souls, it's like an instant, plug in. You go to the internet, oh, you already feel that. Sometimes I feel like my head will explode. And then I go out, nothing, full unity, It's like spirit is in all life in creation and everything that is alive. There was a lot of mechanical structures that humanity has been building, and one of the timelines that's very dominant is what was also experienced. It's all already was. It's not something new. Is we're re-experiencing it to integrate it, like it says here, that for once and for all we will become integrated soul beings. And just like, for me, yes, that's the ultimate. That's the reason for all of this unfolding. And if you see it like the reason for living is to just get out of this something that you can get out of, it makes no sense, because when you look at the nature of unity and oneness, divinity is such high intelligence, you don't know it. And it's working behind every single thing, even that which you feel is something forced upon you, and it's not. But your ego, distorted, fragmented awareness has created a boo-boo out of it. So you're actually chasing dragons when they're not even there. When the true dragon is just a gentle giant that's actually the real nature of these beings that are trying to assist. So when I said that the higher and higher councils, they're structured through the life, the true nature of creation is that of the higher assists the lower, and that doesn't mean lesser or more, better. And then in this duality framework, no, it's just that which is more aware will assist that which is not yet fully aware and has forgotten so deeply. So that's where volunteer souls and those of us doing this unifying work, this timeline merging, and explanation of more archetypal understanding, not just this tiny little figment that you see and you create this elephant out of nothing, out of the fly. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it's not still happening. There's still many different things feeding intense duality on this planet. But you as a sovereign soul have the right to choose. And the more illumined you become, the more you'll be choosing within this unified framework of unity consciousness. When you still see, like I said, residual energy coming up, reaction to that kind of type of content, why are you finding out that content anyway? Perhaps you're part of that experiment and your soul is remembering, even if you're remembering through other people sharing information. But like I said, go with it in awareness. Don't falter like, remember that there's a concept of human ego related to more or less most of the information shared out there, because everyone is presenting their version of the story. Well, in fact, the unified truth is all, and all works together in synthesis. So please remember that, okay? So our galactic history, again, I'll repeat this, is so vast. There's so many experiences within it. And one is the, I forgot to say, because I'm jumping so fast, these topics, you see, when I like jumping from one timeline to the other, but they're all one, right? Is this creation of the robotic human society. That happened as well. You know, you can see Star Wars movie. It's so many archetypes of, you know, it's just memory. When we say, wow, we're having these movies and they're about the future, but it's the memory here of that future, which is actually the past, right? For us, it feels like the future because it comes from a constellation so far away, but yet it's memory of the past and what it was, and the Orion Wars, perhaps, and these things. But remember what the real now is. The real now is what masters have been teaching us. It's the enlightened God spark self. It's the I am attainment and mastery, and only that will keep you out of these distorted realities, which many have been calling evil spirits or evil, but there's no true evil spirit. It's just the energy that was not owned, and it was kind of like, pardon me, it was suppressed and was denied, and it's almost like it becomes your own boo-boo. It becomes your own like ghost. And if you see it like a ghost outside of you, instead of applying that so you can unify from within, then your feelings will be neutral, and they will be from divine love, center of all life in creation, which many people, when they go into what would I call it, hypnotic states and these regression states, they describe it as the biggest love of the mother, which is all life. It's the life of creation. I call this the Holy Spirit. And by the way, I am wearing my Holy Spirit Seraphim Mala today. I love to wear this at these times of intense energy. And it's comprised of 108, so 108 beats of light, to support this presence of Holy Spirit and attunement to that which is sacred. And you can get these, they're products that I made. They're under my trademark, so it's under my page on Serapina Light, under Serapina Light products, and you can get these. They're very beautiful. I love to wear them at such occasions. They're devotional jewelry. They're not like fashion jewelry. So what I want to say is that instead of just falling prey and victims, you know, partial victims to this type of information, work on the material that's conscious. There's also some beautiful astrologers who do stellar or fixed stars archetypes. You can read about any of those fixed stars. They're actually stories. They're like these creation stories. Again, not the same as creation truth, right? Don't confuse the two. And these astrologers can help you, perhaps tuning into your own individual chart and exploring that. And I'm working on the second part of my Galactic signature course that will deal more with the nature of fixed stars and your own archetypes and how to pursue yourself with the storylines you've come here to resolve, the myths that are not just myths, but these imprints that we hold from many, many different records of like keeping of this consciousness records on many levels of our multidimensionality. And you can work with that because there's people who have knowledge behind this. And there's also lots of people who believe they're awake, but they're only partially awake. They awaken to a certain portion or a timeline and they think that's all there is, but it's not really the truth. If you are a prey or a victim to just a few beings who govern the whole world, well, some of them are trying, yes, but that's not the whole and doesn't have to affect you in that way unless you give it power. And that's the reality they're choosing for themselves. And you have to be aware of the fact that the free will means the freedom for the soul to explore and pursue that, right? As well as many different souls who are hybrid souls. They are souls or travelers from other dimensions and other systems, and they still participated here with certain very chaotic experiments of the earth and the planet. So not every hybrid soul is a volunteer soul. That means that not every starseed soul is a starseed within the light of illumination. The channel down below explains this as well. It's the Cassandra channeling, which talks about also the negative, so-called negative star seeds, which are just those who have not yet fully awakened to the full truth, and they're trying to, it's not like pushing for their agenda only. So remember that many, many timelines, many agendas within those timelines, many imprints within those agendas, and yet all of them, right, are a part of the school of learning. And there's no true evil spirits in the spirit planes. What we relate to as evil spirits is not truly of spirit. It's the fragmented bits and pieces that we have been not integrating within themselves, and they many times are expressing themselves in the astral realms, which again, it deals with the part of the human psyche that was so distorted because of all these experiences, and the human consciousness does not, in many ways, does not want to let that go. A lot of people don't want to let those aspects go. They don't want to let go of those memories. How you can let them go? The only way you let them go is when you integrate. So again, my final reference is go within yourself. Feel how you react to that information, what feelings it causes within you. Sit with those feelings. meditate on them, do perhaps a past life regression, go to a hypnotherapist. There's a lot of people practicing. There's practitioners of Dolores Cannon's quantum therapy, of this hypnotic regression by her method, specifically her method. So much assistance that it's based on true knowledge, and everyone knowing that they don't have like the whole answer, right? But these people do the devoted work to the domain of their soul and what they're best at, because together we have pieces of the whole, and that's what makes us luminaries. We don't pretend this is our timeline, this is it, this is our agenda, when we push for it, and we try to fearmonger the people who are not even awake, and we put that to the people, that creates even more distortion, and there's a lot of that. So I've also been shared by Spirit that a lot of these beings, because there's two things that are happening. Some of the people are pushing forth this partial knowledge by purpose, because they want to create misguidance and illusion. And there's people who are just not yet fully awake. They're partially awake and they think they're going good, but they're not yet fully doing good because they haven't integrated their own timelines, and they haven't done the unity merging within themselves. That's the second thing. So people who are pushing for these agendas, and a lot of them are using these stories kind of like mythbusters, right? But it's the opposite. They're using these as myths to scare people with. It's like almost like it's a mirror, and you see the mirror, something in the mirror, but it's not like a real physical persona. It's just a personage, right? So it's like a reflection, and it's never going to become fully a person. It's always going to be held within the mirror frame. So they're using that mirroring and a lot of the holographic reality to kind of create the, there's a lot of exploration of the human brain and how it functions, and they're doing lots of these researches, even, you know, the MK Ultra, because there was so much trying to, that's a timeline, they're still used to it, right? So the souls who have not fully integrated from that Orion timeline and different stories as well, they're still playing out this on Earth. But remember, it's only partial timeline, and it's their decisions, and it's their soul karma and dharma, and you don't perhaps have to become a part of this picture. Ask yourself, work with your soul, show you where you are, what you're integrating. You can integrate everything and anything within the light of unity, and that means the return to divine love and the essence of who you are at your core self. So, so much to share here. I could go on and on. No one knows the full galactic history because different souls play different parts of the experiments, but we're all one. We play this important picture, all of you, all of us together as one. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. You can find out more in this Wisdom of the Stars playlist that I created, and many different playlists. If you want to support my work, please donate to Serapina Light so that these videos are properly reciprocated for, and that my work has value that way as well. And check out how you can become my supporter on Patreon. And until the next topic, I wish to also say that I'm going a little laying down low for a while. I have to work on some of the behind scenes work, the things on my retreats and things I want to offer in the future. So this will be my last video that's more deep in scope. I shared a lot of videos recently, and it's kind of like depleted my energy resources for a while. I'm going a little behind the scenes and a little down low, but I love you so much. I'll see you soon. And when the retreat information comes out, there will be a link and a promo video, and I can't wait for that to happen, because my mission is to help souls to create themselves how they truly are, masters of their domain, truly sovereign souls, beautiful beings of light who are completely unified within, and their life force is claimed and owned and used for greater good. And that's what I'm going to be doing, and that's my mission. So a lot of the things perhaps that I've talked about before, I no longer will, because it's not the importance, because I go with the group consciousness, and a lot of souls are now ready to move into these deeper levels. But I felt this video was important, and if you perhaps felt it was important too, even if you're not the one who asked the question, if you feel to donate and sponsor this video, thank you so much. I really always appreciate your support, so that I feel honored in what I share. And so many beautiful people gave me so amazing feedback, so thank you so much. I love you all with so much love, wisdom, and power as always, and read that book. It's super awesome. I love you. Take care. See you soon.